English 2030, sorry about yesterday. I had a minor plumbing problem, which is to say I woke up and had a crack in my bathroom ceiling that had water dripping from it. So I had to spend all day at my apartment waiting on a plumber to show up, basically. And now I have a hole in my bathroom ceiling because they couldn't find the leak for whatever reason. Anyway, we need to make sure we are starting on Othello. So, last Friday we did three of Shakespeare's sonnets, and now we're finishing out the first unit by doing one of his plays, or I guess, one of his tragedies, which we're doing the one that's in the textbook, which is Othello. So, when it comes to Shakespeare, specifically with his plays, with his dramas or with his tragedies, I feel like we can pretty well understand his poetry. His poetry and his sonnets are maybe a little bit more straightforward, but his dramas, his plays, are a lot of times where students need a little bit more guidance because Shakespeare writes in the way that he does, and we just have to kind of learn how to operate with the way he writes. So in this video, I want to at least get some of the beginning points out of the way for helping us to understand Othello. So obviously, we will spend the rest of the week going through the play during class. We're actually going to watch the 1995 film version, which is it stars a prime Lawrence Fishburne as Othello. So I'm not really a big watch the movie or watch movies during class kind of professor, but I make an exception when it comes to Othello because I think that the film is actually a really, really good adaptation. Obviously, it skips some parts of the play, but it gets all the really important scenes. So we will kind of be going back and forth between the text of the play and the film as we go through it. So for this video, I just want to give a few pieces of background information and maybe get us through the first scene or maybe first couple of scenes of Othello. So the first thing we have to understand when looking at this play is the character of Othello himself. He is what is referred to by the rest of the cast as a Moor. That is a M-O-O-R. So a Moor basically is anyone who, in Shakespeare's time at least, anyone who is not a white European, they referred to them as a Moor. Othello's racial background is a little bit ambiguous, but the most important thing that we need to know is the play, the full title of the play is Othello, the Moor of Venice. Let me make sure I'm saying that correctly. Othello, this one just says Othello. I'm fairly certain that the full title is Othello, the Moor of Venice. So what we need to take away from that is, at least in the beginning of the play, or the first several scenes of the play, is set in Venice, which is in Italy. So what we need to know is that Othello is an outsider in this society. He's like pretty much all Shakespeare characters. Othello is pretty complex in that, yes, he is like an outsider to this Venetian society, but at the same time, he is also the general of their army. Okay, so we have Othello, who is a Moor, and almost no one throughout the text of this play refers to Othello by his name. They just call him the Moor or his Moorship, this, that, and the other, which is kind of problematic in its own way. But the first thing we have to understand is that Othello is an outsider in this community, in this Venetian society, and that outsider status is going to be used against him at several points in the play. But also, even though he is an outsider, he is also the general of the Venetian army. So that will be another important part of his character. So other than Othello himself, as pretty much any drama does, right, we begin with the dramatis personae, which is the cast of the play, right? So we have the main character, who is Othello, and in this version, or in this text that I'm referring to right now, they refer to as Othello as a noble Moor in the service of the Venetian state, which he's the general of their army. We have Iago. So Iago, and some people have even made the argument that Iago is more of the main character of the play than Othello is, but he is, for our purposes, he is our villain of this play. Okay, so but in a weird way, I almost think that Iago gets more screen time than Othello does, and that might be why some people say that he could be he's the main character and not Othello. But our two big players here are Othello and Iago. All right, so basically Othello good guy, Iago bad guy. Okay. Along with those, we have Desdemona, who is the love interest of the play. So Desdemona is Othello's wife at the start of the play, and Desdemona is also the daughter of Senator Brab. I've never really known how to say his name, Brabantano. I just call him Senator Brab, or it's shortened BRAB. So he is a senator. Desdemona is his daughter. Othello has married Desdemona at the start of the play, and Iago is essentially, he is like the bad guy of the play, but he is also Othello's inscient, which is essentially his right hand man. All right, so this is important because at the beginning of the play we see that Othello has overlooked Iago for a promotion. Okay, so a couple things are happening at the start of the play. One, Othello has in secret snuck away and married Desdemona. On top of that, he has promoted someone to be his lieutenant, and the person he promotes is not his right-hand man, who is Iago, but it is instead Michael Cassio. All right, so Michael Cassio is another important character that we have. He is a Florentine, so he is from Florence, Italy, instead of Venice. So we see here at certain parts of the play that kind of whether or not you are on the in or the outside of the Venetian society becomes important. So we see a line at towards the beginning of the play where Iago says of Michael Cassio that he's Michael Cassio, he's a Florentine or Florentine, however you want to say it. But he makes the point that a lot of, or he basically says that Michael Cassio is like unsuited for this position. He says he knows more about theory than he does battle, all of this kind of stuff. But what we need to know, the two kind of inciting incidents that we have to start this play, Othello marrying Desdemona in secret, and Iago getting passed up for the promotion to lieutenant by Michael Cassio. So at the beginning of the play, Othello marries Desdemona. He makes Michael Cassio his lieutenant instead of Iago. And we also have another character, Rodrigo, who is kind of like, I guess you can call him like Iago's stooge almost. So if you've ever seen the cartoon Pinky and the Brain, Iago is the brain and Rodrigo is Pinky. That might be kind of a old reference, but if you've ever seen that cartoon, that's kind of who these two are. Okay, so all that means is that Iago's the smart one and Rodrigo's kind of like the more dumb one who just kind of goes along with Iago's plans. Okay, so in the beginning of the play, we see that Iago and Rodrigo have kind of like spied on Othello's secret marriage. Okay, so we have some important lines where I'm not going to like read them, but basically I'll just sum them up for us. So Iago tells Rodrigo that he's mad that he got passed up for his promotion, and Rodrigo is also mad because he is actually in love with Desdemona. All right, so both Iago and Rodrigo have a reason to be mad at Othello. So they both have kind of like a motivation to hatch a scheme to get Othello in trouble, basically. Okay, so they witness the secret marriage, and Iago and Rodrigo. Some important lines in the first scene. So again, we're dealing with a play. So we have like Act 1, Scene 1, and then within that we have line numbers. But in Act 1, Scene 1, Iago tells Rodrigo that he's upset with Othello, and Rodrigo says, well, I would not follow Othello then if he's done you this way, right? And in response to that, Iago says, I follow him to serve my turn on him, right? So he is basically saying, I need to continue to follow and make Othello believe that I'm working with him so I can actually work against him, okay? So Iago says to Rodrigo, we need to call up Desdemona's father. He's like, call up her father. And what they do is, since they've witnessed Othello and Desdemona have this secret marriage, they run to Senator Brab. They run to like the street outside of his window, and Senator Brab is having a bad dream. And basically, he's saying like, I can tell something bad is going to happen because I'm having this bad dream. So as Iago and Rodrigo run up to the street outside of the senator's bedroom window, they make a lot of noise. They're like, "Where's your daughter?" They're screaming and shouting. They wake up the senator. Okay, so the senator comes to the window and he's looking down at the street, and we see, it's kind of funny in the movie. I believe Iago, like, he's hiding behind something, and he pushes Rodrigo out. So Rodrigo's just standing in the street underneath the window. And Senator Brab says, Rodrigo, I know you. He's like, I told you to leave my daughter alone. He's like, you can't marry my daughter. I don't want you around her. And so they basically say, is your daughter within her chambers? And Rodrigo says, like, if your daughter is home, because he knows she's not, right? He's seen her out secretly marrying Othello. He's like, if your daughter is home, then I would be lying to you, and you could use like the full force of the law against me. But they know that they're in the clear because they know Desdemona's not home. Okay, so Iago, we see throughout the play, Iago use some pretty racist language. So he says to the senator, he's like, now, even now. He says something like, an old black ram is tupping your white ewe. So he is using this very racially charged language in order to upset the senator, right? So they succeed in waking up the senator, and they're like, we need to go track down Othello because he's run off with your daughter, right? So the senator's like, we got to get an angry mob. It's like a classic angry mob in the street with torches and everything. So they find Othello, and before that happens, the Iago looks at Rodrigo. He's like, okay, so we just woke up the senator, and basically we're having the senator get this angry mob to go confront Othello. And Iago's like, now I gotta go run and go get Othello and play both sides. So he's like, I gotta go get to Othello before the angry mob does, so I can pretend like I'm with him this whole time, and like kind of be on his side when this angry mob that Iago got started comes to find Othello. So the mob comes and they find Othello, and the senator is like, I'm going to take you, he basically says, I'm going to take you to court because you've like stolen my daughter away from me. One of my favorite lines in the play is when the angry mob approaches Othello and they draw their swords on him. And Othello says something like, put your swords away or the dew will rust them. And essentially, we're like, when we translate from what Shakespeare says to like normal speech, what he's essentially saying is, I know you're not going to use your swords and you're only putting them out for show. And he's like, if you don't put them away, then they're just going to get rusted by the dew because you're not even going to actually use them. So that's one of my favorite lines. But what we see here are a couple things. So the senator is basically saying, Senator Brab is telling Othello, I want to take you to court because you have like married my daughter without me like approving it, basically. Okay. And if you want to know really the reason why he's so mad about it, it's because Othello is not white, right? That's really the reason why he's upset, okay? So anyway, Michael Cassio, I believe, interjects and says, well, we need to go to the council chamber anyway, which is basically like court, or like where they would have this proceeding. He's like, we need to go there anyway because the Duke wants to see Othello to talk about like battle plans with the army, right? So I believe that takes us into Act 1, Scene 2, where they enter the Duke's, this is Act 1, Scene 3. So they enter the council chamber at this point, all right? So what happens here, and this is where we'll probably pick up it with the text in class, what happens is they are like, before we can get to like our military business, Senator Brab, it's what case do you want to make the to the Duke? So the senator says, if you would have my attention, or if I could have your attention, I want to bring to you this case of Othello has stolen my daughter. He has stolen Desdemona. And Othello says, he gives a pretty long speech where he says, if you sirs would let me speak to you, he's like, he essentially says, I am not good with words. He's like, I am a warrior, I'm a fighter. I win things through strength and muscles. I don't win things through talking the way that you all do, right? He said, but I will try to still use my words because that's the only thing I can do here is use my words to explain to you what's happened, okay? So in this speech, we get a couple pieces of information that are important. One, Othello and the senator actually go pretty far back. So when this betrayal happens, it's almost more of Othello feeling like he's being betrayed by the senator because they've been friends for quite a while. He says to this that the reason that him and Desdemona ever even started talking was because Desdemona would overhear when Othello gave like he would like tell the senator, Desdemona's father, he would tell him about like the stories of his adventures and the stories of his battles. And Desdemona would overhear Othello telling her father these stories, and she became like very kind of enchanted by Othello's like acts of bravery and heroism and all this stuff, all of these battles that he survived, all of these different places he had been to through his work with the army. And basically, she would start hanging around Othello more and more and more because she was growing attached to him based on hearing his stories. And so he says something like, "For my troubles, she pitied me." So in that saying, Othello is saying the troubles that he had been through made Desdemona like care for him because she sees that he is like a vulnerable soul who has gone through all of these really hard battles because of his job in the army, right? So Othello finishes this speech by saying, "This is how I won your daughter," right? He's basically saying, I won her fair and square because she came to me, right? She chose me. Um, so eventually Desdemona, they say, bring her in, right? So they bring in Desdemona, and she says, yes, I have chosen Othello as my husband. She says, father, you are my father, but Othello is now my husband, right? And he actually, or Desdemona actually has this pretty, like sick burn of a line where she says that, I chose him the same way that my mother chose you, right? So that's kind of like where she catches her father in the act of like being a hypocrite in a way. But anyway, the important part here is that after this is all over, that kind of settles the case, and Senator Brab, Desdemona's father, looks to Othello, and what's important here is like the very first seed of doubt gets planted in Othello's head. So what we're going to see is a lot of lies and a lot of playing on jealousy throughout this whole thing. So Senator Brab looks at Othello and says, be careful. He said, she has deceived me. He says she's deceived her father, and she may very well also deceive you, right? So anyway, that ends the opening of the play, where the important things that happen are we see that Othello and Desdemona get married in secret, okay? Iago and Rodrigo kind of spy on the marriage. They both come up with a reason for being mad at Othello. From there, they run over to the senator's bedroom like window under his window on the street. They wake him up. They tell him what's happened. The senator sends this mob after Othello. Instead of fighting, they say we'll go settle this. Basically, they say we'll go settle this in court at the Duke's chamber. So when they get there, the senator presses his charges against Othello to the Duke, and the Duke says, well, we'll hear out your stories, right? We'll hear out both sides. So Othello gives his speech, Desdemona is finally brought in, and she tells her side of the thing, and then all of that gets settled, and they say, now that all that's settled, Othello, you are still the general of our army, and since you are the general of our army, we need you to go to Cyprus, to the island of Cyprus, to fight the Turks, okay? So that's kind of where the first act of the play ends, is by them saying, okay, we're going to go to Cyprus. Othello says, I'll only go if Desdemona can come along with me, which that gets approved. So the whole cast is going to move from Venice to the island of Cyprus, and that's where the rest of the play will take place. Act 1 ends with a scene, after everyone else leaves, we have a scene between Iago and Rodrigo, where Iago kind of gives this famous put money in your purse speech to Rodrigo. So Rodrigo comes out, he's crying, he says he's going to kill himself by drowning himself, and Iago responds by saying, like, you're being pitiful. He's like, you're crying over this, but what's going to happen is if you put money in your purse, so this is a double entendre the same way Shakespeare always does. He says to put money in your purse is a couple things. One, literally save up some money because we're going to travel to go to Cyprus as well. But also when he says put money in your purse, he's saying invest in yourself, right? He's saying invest in yourself. If you just invest in yourself and make yourself better, then you can do that. And while you're investing in yourself and making yourself better, we're going to basically hatch a scheme that is going to split up Othello and Desdemona. He even goes so far as to say that they're going to make Desdemona see the error of her ways by marrying Othello, and they're going to split them up. And basically, Iago says, once we break off the marriage that has now happened between Othello and Desdemona, she can be all yours, Rodrigo, right? But keep in mind that Iago only ever helps people out to help himself out. So he's fooling Rodrigo by making him think that he's trying to help him, because really Iago only cares about helping himself. All right. So that is basically just a very, very quick summary of like the introduction and Act 1 of the play. So hopefully we can get caught up with Act 2 in class tomorrow. Thanks for watching the update. This is usually something I do when I teach an online class, but since we had to lose a day yesterday, and since we're doing probably one of the harder things that we work on in this class, I thought it'd be good to go ahead and still do an update like this anyway. So hopefully it was helpful. When we come back to class, I will make sure that we zero in on the lines, like the important lines that I want you to have noted. But for this update, I just wanted to do a summary of what's going on. Hopefully this will be helpful, and we'll pick back up with where we stopped, which is Act 2, where they're in Cyprus, and we'll hopefully be able to finish this week. We probably won't be able to finish it this week, but we're going to try our best to do that. After we get this done, we'll be able to get ready for our first exam. So let's just get through Othello, and then we'll be able to take the exam and keep going from there. All right, thanks, and I'll see you all in class tomorrow.